And this is the movement of microcredit we find in recent years, which just says, hey, look, somebody doesn't have anything, but I'm going to loan them, I'm going to make available 25 bucks. And with 25 bucks, you can buy yourself a goat. Another approach to this would be, let's have a revolution. Societies are stacked in various kinds of ways. Let's organize the poor, the impoverished, and let's organize them in such a way that we overthrow the government, which consists of a bunch of not only powerful but rich people, and we replace these bad guys with the good guys, with people who come out of poverty or whatever. We've got pity, we've got charity, we've got community organizing, we've got revolution, we've got treating people as fellow entrepreneurs through loans and not grants, and we've got the idea of human rights. Just 10 minutes, again ridiculous. What of these ideas do you find most appealing and why?
I really think education is kind of just a universal response to any problem, because I mean, you can have some sort of reciprocal education where I tell you what I know, you tell me what you know. I tell you about myself, you tell me about yourself. And so by informing people and broadening their perspective on their own lives, it just empowers them to make decisions and to make choices. And I also think the microcredit and the economic side is important, because you have to give people the knowledge, but then you also have to give them the means, and you have to give them just the resources to achieve what they decide they want to achieve after they've been given the knowledge.
Right. And so you don't have to go in and say, okay guys, you got more capabilities. You could do it the indirect way and say, let's see if we can increase opportunities to go to school. Because school, even if it's boring, even if it's rote, there's something incredible about education that has this liberatory impact.
So do you like profess human rights and things like that in the school? Say you went to a third world country or a developing country, and you built a school like a lot of people do. Mm-hmm. But do you? Because a lot of times, honestly, I don't know what goes on in those type of schools, because they're built, but the same thing still goes on.
Right.
And I don't understand. And so the thing is like I've always wondered, like, why don't they teach human rights and things like that?
I think the answer is I would myself stay away from offering to teach a course on human rights, just because it is, well, let me give you the main, there is a reason that it is basically you are coming in as revolutionary. Mm-hmm. And you better realize that either you produce a kind of social revolution in the village, or more likely, you get yourself kicked out of the village. Right. Again, they come in and say, I want to do some new course, or I want to teach creative and critical thinking. Boy, do they find that they just run into a dead end. Is your creative thinking going to help me on passing the exam and getting a certificate or not? If it's not, we don't want you. Mm-hmm. So in effect, rote learning in order to pass the exam is so much the main purpose of the schooling, that anything of this creative thinking and so forth and so on, and human rights and all that sort of stuff, is in general going to be treated as a diversion from what matters. I have to, I think, grapple with that as a reality. A very important question: ask these kids, why are you in school? What would you like to do if you pass the exam, and so forth? And all of a sudden you'll find, man, this is oriented toward white-collar civil rights, civil government mm-hmm. Things, not civil rights. So I would say it's a terrific idea in theory and in practice, and I wouldn't do it. Do these guys do any good? Or perhaps or do they do any bad? I mean, if you had to generalize, how do you think about outside organizations that relate in some way to the country that you're going to go to? What's your kind of general take on this? Yes?
Well, before we were talking about how individualized approaches are so important, like how one individual's goals for development are very different from another individual's on the other side of the world. Mm-hmm. So I could see a potential problem with international organizations that try to develop countries, that they have to really approach things on a local scale. Like, you can't just set standards, like, to be developed you need this, 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 and this. And
coming in, they're not I wouldn't use the word imposing, but they are certainly strongly suggesting with money added to it. That is, if you take our idea, then there's money. If you don't take it, of course, there's no money. But they've got power, they've got influence, and in general, they're dealing at a collective level with a model that they believe works, and so it's easy to leave the individual out. The individual might be the deviant case, and that's...
People who are coming with those organizations have the money. And so you're dealing with people who are, you know, trying to survive. And so they're like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. That's a great phrase. Whatever. If you guys think we need a bunch of chickens, that's just fine. But to the extent that we take the initiative to get something started, maybe even raise the money, because what do the people want? They want the well. They want the bridge. I had another student who's just raised $10,000 for a bridge in Costa Rica that was knocked out during a recent hurricane. And I'm sure the bridge is going to be named for her. But is that her thing or their thing? The ownership might be less, the better job you do, the worse job you do. It's the more you get something done because of your actions. You're raising the money, you're the whatever person. If you've got the whatever it takes to pay for this darn thing, then it's going to be Matt's bridge. Okay. Then when you leave, Matt's bridge doesn't get maintained because the ownership hasn't really transferred psychologically to the people for whom the bridge was built. So you're asked to raise money for this thing. Be very tough. Ask the tough questions. Who owns this infrastructure after I go? Who is going to maintain it? Where does the money, is it going to come from a tax the village imposes on itself to cover this thing? These issues, I would say, have to be addressed before you go out and raise a single dime.